supports the WebSphere application server in addition to Tomcat.
Sorry, switch the slide. Here we are.
Yes, that's where the system changes.
So again, not that major changes in contrast to 5.5, but still some significant things that you should know also for the upgrade. But all of those changes are handled by the upgrade scripts anyway. And if you're interested in support for IBM WebSphere, get in contact with us, because this is not provided per default for everyone. So let's continue with what has happened in taxonomy and ontology management in 6. So from the overview, we will show you the new semantic middleware configurator. There has been major improvements in ontology management, history management, and import-export. The visual mapper in PoolParty has been improved to show more information, and there is an option to include external visualization tools. And also new linked data sources have been added. That said, let's directly jump into a demo and let's have a look at all those features. So when you work with PoolParty 6, you will also see that again we worked and improved the UI quite a lot, making it more consistent and easier to view and work with. So the first thing we wanted to show you is the semantic middleware configurator. So it's an additional view you can access up here, and it's the central point where you configure all systems connected to PoolParty. So on one hand, that are of course the built-in indexes, search indexes used. So here the Solar that is configured with this PoolParty server for the entity extraction, but also can be used for graph search. It's the triple stores that are connected to that server. So it's now possible to have not only one, you can have several, even several instances of the same type of store connected. So you see with this server we have connected to a MarkLogic database, we have connected to a Dozo database, and to GraphDB. The signals show you also if this connection is working, so there seems to be a misconfiguration with the graph search. And external systems, these are the visualization I've been talking about, so it's easy now. We will see that a bit later in more detail, to configure an external tool and send information to it. And of course also the linked data sources, here per default configured with our linked data cache that we provide to our customers. But if you want to host your own cache, it's then pretty easy to reconfigure here and point the linked data source to the respective cache. And here this is the configuration side, and here you see what features are enabled for those configured sources. And here you see then clearly that, for example, extraction model calculation is done in Solar, what is available for visualization, what can be used to export data to. So it's a good overview of all the connected services to your system. Easier to configure. Configuration is not hidden anymore in files. It can be directly done here and then used in the application. And also a next step to have more connectivity to other systems. Next thing we wanted to show, I hand over to Robert, is the improved ontology management.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the improved ontology management includes a major change in the data model. So we now are using almost exclusively OUR. The features itself did not change, but the data model, which of course affects the export and import, and also if you look at the data, it is more easier to understand now. Another change that we did is the addition of sub-properties feature. So I made here a little ontology with two relations, and now it is possible to, when I want to create a relation, we have this new sub-property feature where you can select which properties this property should be a sub-property of.
And as you can see here, also you can make sync sub-properties of these cost properties that we use as a standard data model in PoolParty itself.
Yes, exactly. So you can use your own properties for building the thesaurus tree also. But of course I can also create sub-properties of my own defined properties, and we of course also support multiple sub-property relation. So now I created a property which is a sub-property of has identifier and has name. And if you apply this property to a concept in the thesaurus, you will get these other two properties inferred.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course this is also available for attributes. Here another change that has happened is previously we had type label for language text literals and literal for non-language text literals. We merged those now, and as you can see you have now configure per options what kind of literal you want to have. So language text literal that's unique per language, things like that. Also, if it should be a single line input field or a multi-line input field, gives again more expressivity that you can do here, and hopefully simpler configuration. And another thing that has been changed, you will find now that you have everywhere a description tab that allows you to add a description, which is an RDFS comment.
Comment, yeah.
Correct. Again, per language, to describe your ontology. And that not only applies to all attributes, relations, and classes, you can also manage the descriptions of your ontologies and custom schemes themselves. So that's basically the main changes that happened on the ontology. Again, a huge step forward. Let's switch to a project. Next thing we want to show is improvement we did for our history management. So as you can see, the filters have changed. We added an event filter, so you can now clearly say you want to see only changes on where relations have been added, for example. And I select also, so it seems only Robert changed relations here. Oops, that's not good. And that's one thing, so filtering by events. But more important, since we found that the history can get huge, which could also be a problem, we provide now options to, on one hand, download history. So you could do things like download history, archive it, and then also delete history. History can of course also then be re-imported if you need it. Yeah, but that's a way of cleaning up also histories, whether by filtering things out you might not need, or by archiving history, by downloading it and removing the history from the project. So again, also here several changes based on requirements that we got or that we saw in several projects. And next thing is also to show you some improvements we did on export. So what has been added now is that you have the option, in addition to the thesaurus data, to export the corpora, so the that are in place for this project, and the schemes and ontologies that are used in that project. So that really now allows you to transfer one project complete with corpora and with schemes to another server, for example, or to copy it. Before you had to do the export and import of the project, recreate the corpora and move the custom schemes and ontologies over. That is not necessary anymore. You can do that in one go. As you see, also a compress option has been added, so you can directly get a zip file, and a pretty print option has been added that provides meaningful grouping of the triples in the RDF output. Here you see also a direct usage of the configuration of the different remote stores in the semantic middleware configurator before. Since you can now configure more than one store, you can of course also export to more than one store. That is available in several places. Also in corpus management, you can now choose where to create your corpus, and all the graph databases that are supported can be used for corpus management, for import-export, and of course also for import-export of ontologies. We won't show that now, but of course you can then try it out when you export now the whole project, and then you do the re-import. After the import, you will get an information box that tells you how many schemes have been imported, how many corpora have been imported, so you have an overview of what has happened on your import. That's the improvement on the import side. Visualizations. Yeah. So let's take an example. We have enabled the cocktail scheme here, and now, as you can see already, the visual mapper has been extended to show context information to the selected concept. So we see the description, we see the labels, but more than that, you can you have settings to provide additional information and additional information from your ontologies. And by that, you get not only display the SCOS relations of your taxonomy, you will see all relations. So here we see that the Bellini persists of peachberry and Prosecco, and you can also navigate by these other relations. So we see Prosecco is also used in Spritz Veneziano and Barracuda, for example, here. And so let's go back to Bellini. Here we were. And also in our context box, we will then see the additional information like the preparation that is added in our custom scheme. So Visual Mapper has been extended to show much more information than we had before. And via the settings you can configure what should be displayed. And we briefly showed it. You can configure here external systems, and we configured two. So one is cosplay, that again can be used to have different visualizations of your taxonomy data. As you can see here, you can choose what data can be provided to these applications that you configure. In that case, it's whether the whole project or the concept scheme. For the web bowl, which is a visualization tool for ontologies, here we provide the custom schemes and ontologies. And you have the option to provide a file or even no data export, HTTP request, and of course you can choose the format that you want to have. And as you see, also an image, because those configurations that you do here appear then as, and this is what we will have a look at now, as apps up here in this application box in PoolParty. So you can configure your own applications basically, and also in context. So we are in ontology management, so here we provide ontologies and custom schemes. That is why web bowl is enabled and cosplay is not. And now we will have a look, for example, at our fiber ontology. And now I go there. The ontology is downloaded. I can here in the tool select that file. And upload it and have a nice visualization of my ontology I can play around with. Same with cosplay and taxonomy data, where I can then have an export of the data and do the visualization in cosplay if I am in my project. And with that we come to the new linked data sources. Robert? Oh, I start with permitting. Okay, so we added a couple of new linked data sources. As you can see, we also split up DBpedia, and with 6 you have also Russian DBpedia available and Dutch DBpedia. I didn't find it. Oh.
It's yeah, here.
This
is the Dutch DBpedia, okay. So it's NL for Netherlands.
And OpenPermaD. OpenPermaD is not configured by default. You know, it's a Thomson Reuters service. So you have to apply for an API key, and then you can configure it in the semantic middleware configurator, providing the API key and enable that linked data source by that. Once enabled, of course, you can add it to your project, and then fetch data for that. Let's see, I'm not sure if you find something in PermaD for just for cocktails, but who knows. Kirin Holdings. Not the right mapping, but basically to show the principle. Let's, I would say this is a close match. And of course you can also then copy data from there. So Here it is. Yeah. And get that information from that source. And in addition, some Getty vocabularies have been added as linked data sources.
Yes, so we added 3 vocabularies from Getty that you can see here. So this is the AAT, the Arts and Architecture Thesaurus, which includes generic concepts for describing art and architecture. The TGN, the Thesaurus of Geographic Names, which includes descriptions for historic places and archaeological sites. And the ULAN, the Union List of Artist Names, which includes artists and people involved in creating art and architecture.
Yeah, again, they can be added as sources. We can link to it and provide copy data from the sources. And that was the basic overview of the main things on changes that happened in taxonomy and ontology management. And we will come to the next, which is what happened in corpus management and entity extraction.
Yes, the first feature we want to show that is completely new is the word sense induction. Created here a project which is based on the cocktails thesaurus with a corpus containing information about things that use the name Americano. So as you probably know, it can be a cocktail, but it can also be a coffee, a type of coffee. We have this new word sense induction feature here that you can enable here. So it's optional to calculate these word senses, which I previously did. And if we now look at the extracted terms, search here for Americano. We have this new word sense induction feature here. And here we can see that PoolParty disambiguated the term Americano and associated it with the first one is probably the cocktail context or the cocktail sense, and the second one is probably the coffee, meaning of coffee. So we can now select these two, and instead of creating one concept, we can add them both as candidate concepts, and they keep their word sense if we do this. But we can also decide that these are actually still the same, even two senses were inducted, and merge them again. But probably here we can for sure say that these should be two concepts. The second new feature is what we call shadow concept, and it's again a corpus analysis feature. And it is about finding concepts in corpora that are not directly referenced, but the terms that describe their context appear. So this enables us to find concepts that are not actually there but should be there. And here I have a thesaurus about the ACM computing classification system, and we created a corpus here with papers that are about semantic web. And I added here an example document where's the document?
Maybe it's by creation.
Yeah, it's a good idea. The semantic knowledge graph it was. And if we open this document, we can see the annotations. So we have here concepts, shadow concepts, and the terms, which you now can select or deselect separately. So let's remove the terms first. So here we see the green ones are the concepts that were found. And if we also remove the concepts, the shadow concepts remain. So we now see as the corpus is about semantic web and the document is about the semantic knowledge graph, we can find concepts here like ontologies, trees, classes and objects, World Wide Web, networks, patterns, and the like. So these concepts were not directly referenced within the text, but the text talks about them, and so PoolParty was able to detect and find them. Yes, improved scoring and the standard language model. So we did quite some work to improve the scores of the corpus analysis. Several improvements were not only done for the quality but also for performance. So it runs now faster and takes up less memory. We also included a standard language model feature that you can activate here separately. So this has to be installed separately, and it uses a reference corpus based on DBpedia to detect common terms and adjust the scores of the corpus analysis according to these generally used terms to score them lower. And finally, we have a language detection feature for corpus creation. For example, if we paste the text here for uploading, I added a text in German here, but the corpus is in English. We have this enforce option here, and if I try to submit it, we see that there's a language mismatch. So PoolParty detected that this text is not written in English and prevented the upload of it. This is of course available for all the corpus creations options. So you can be sure that the documents that are added to your corpus also match the language and give meaningful results after the analysis. So these were the corpus analysis features. Now we continue with the new search UI.
Yes, so there were major changes to our PoolParty graph search application. So one thing is so you can say the application has been completely reworked with the goal that we now support beyond search based on the search indexes like Solr, Apache Solr, or Elasticsearch that has been added in PoolParty 5.5. Also a PoolParty graph search sitting on top of a triple store. Offering the same set of APIs and features for those different types of stores. And an additional thing that has been done here is that the UI has completely been reworked and allowing it to set up those searches by configuration. So what we see here is the new search UI. You can see it gives a much better overview than the previous one. Immediately we also see one new thing. It's now statistics that you can configure that dynamically adapt, as you see, based on the results, on the search results. Beside that, the basic features as we know it from the faceted search are still there, so the drill down via facets, the suggest service. Here you see also we added more context information to the search suggestions. So on one hand, the label that matched and also the context, that means the broader concept in the taxonomy of that term, to pick results from here. The configuration of facets you want to show. So already nice configurable front end here. You can hide those windows here, you can enlarge them, you can minimize and maximize them. So that's all nice changes from the UI. Here you show similar documents. So that is what happened on the front end that would be visible to users. As an administrator, so also to add here, here are some options to, as you can see, to manage what is shown here, but also an Excel export feature has been added that allows me to drill down my results and then have an export of that where I see the search result data of that filtered result. So the metadata basically we have in the search engine. All of that can be managed by configuration. So we have our admin dashboard where we see already what are this is rather the overview where we see the connected systems. So the PoolParty server that is used. We see that this search is based on Solar. We have the configuration of the project. So here we see this search is based on the social semantic web thesaurus. It's thesaurus-based faceting that's done here. So that's the difference if we work on top of a thesaurus and what we will see later. This is another addition. You can now develop search applications that are based on an ontology that you define within PoolParty in the ontology management. So here you configure basically the project that is used and have some other settings. And you have some options since it's Solar to refresh caches, to synchronize. This is where you do basically the configuration of the search itself. Here you see the facets, so with the corresponding labels. that map to the concept schemes in your taxonomy, and based on that you can configure charts directly in here. So I could now define a new pie chart based on one of the facets that I have here. So papers per information source, we can do that right away. So a new pie chart, on the basis for the chart is that facet. That is it. Just a moment. So, and we place it where it should be. And we have configured our new chart, and it will be displayed in our front end. So better configurable directly from the front end, but in the end, of course, all that, and here we have it. Yeah. But in the end, all based on the API. So of course, you can build your own front ends on top of it. Also, Graph Search has been connected to Unified Views. So there were also a lot of improvements in Unified Views in that release, especially in the connectivity with PoolParty. So what we see in a moment is the pipeline that is used for this demo. So this research paper demo here, the data for the demo is produced via that API that fetches files from some folder, does the entity extraction based on PoolParty, and ingests directly the result in the Graph Search API to provide that result. And again, this DPU could be made available here in the dashboard to trigger that process directly within here. Yeah? And that way, a whole search application can be built basically just by configuration. And coming to the next point, in addition to this Solr or Elastic search-based search, you can build a graph search, and this one will be familiar because this graph search is built on top of the cocktails project we already saw before. So accessing the administration here, we will see the store here is in that case a Virtuoso server where the data is stored. In that case, it's open here. Simply the project has been exported to Virtuoso via the normal export to provide data for the graph search, so not even unified views was needed for the process. I mean, if you want to automate it and do it regularly, of course, you should use unified views to have this on a regular basis, but on a one-time basis, you can do it directly here. And then this is the project configuration. We see it's a custom scheme-based faceting here because we also selected the ontology to use for the data. So we made a cocktail search scheme for this because not all attributes in our ontology fit for a facet. So preparation, for example, makes not a good facet, or the link to the IBA information of the cocktail. We see what search fields we have. Again, also we could configure charts here, and in addition, what we have for this ontology-based graph search, we can define the labels that are used for the definitions in the search results and for display in the facets. So again, completely configurable graph search based on your ontology data. The data can be exported directly from PoolParty, and that results then in a search where we could say now we only want cocktails that have vodka in it. Okay, similarity in that case not that good, but we have different similarity algorithms we could include to improve that. Let's have a look if we covered everything. So new search UI, a statistics API, graph search can sit on top of the graph database, besides the search on top of Solar and Elasticsearch, driven by the ontology that you define in PoolParty, and strong connection to unified views that can be used to manage all data provisioning, transformation, to ingest the data into your search index, may it be the triple store or may it be Solar or Elasticsearch. Good. I think we are through with the main features. So let's see if there have been questions. Not yet. So we continue our API. So on the API side, of course, again, a lot of things have changed, or not that much changes, rather improvements, but also a number of new API calls you should be aware of that provide additional information. So from the PoolParty Thesaurus Manager and Ontology Manager API, services have been added to create and delete projects. You can create projects with the whole definition that you do in the create project dialog in the backend, but you can also directly create projects from a PPR via the API. That means you can automate project creation even between projects, or delete projects directly that way. You saw the changes in history, of course, that is also available in the API, so there's a delete history service. But also history has been extended to provide more information on the history event itself that allow to improve the synchronization by history between servers. Since corpora are available in export, of course, there's also an export service. So here you see it's not only possible to export the whole corpus. You can just download the documents of a corpus and use it for a new corpus. Again, they can automate corpus creation or moving corpora from one server to another server, making things like that easier. And also relevant, there's a long-running task service, so all those things that are long-running tasks in PoolParty, like corpus analysis, like, what do we have in addition, Robert? Long-running tasks. Excel import, I think is one.
Yes, yeah. Or for example, the import assistant.
You can check if one of those tasks is running, see what are the currently running tasks, again something that might be relevant.
So you can do an asynchronous integration of these long-running tasks. First triggering the long-running task, getting back the ID, and then afterwards you can regularly check if this process already finished.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of additional improvements. We'll find everything in the release notes. Those are the main new things we have in the service management API. Also in the extractor or entity extractor API, we had several major changes. So first thing is there is now the possibility in the entity extractor to talk to multiple projects. So you have not to do one call per project anymore. If you have multiple taxonomies you want to tag a text with, you just send the text to, you can specify a list of projects to send the text to. You can restrict results to specific classes, custom classes or concept schemes in your taxonomy. And not all the extract calls, so extract, annotate and store support the retrieval of custom scheme information. So you get more information back from your concepts and can make use of that in your integrations. Language detection, of course, has been added. So by default, when you don't specify that one, it's like you deactivate language detection in corpus. It will just take the document. If you include language detection and you send a document that is not in that language via the API, you will get a notification back. And also very important, you can include more precise matching information on the extracted concepts and terms, meaning the label that matched in the text of the concept and the position in where it was found. And of course, Robert showed it already, shadow concepts have been added to all those calls. So you not only get back the concepts, you also can get back the shadow concepts, and let's have a brief look at least at that. So I will take the same document that Robert used before. Just copy some text and you will find it, of course, in the API documentation that there are several new parameters for that. But let's have a look at our test form and try it out with that one. So that one changed too. So I picked the language now. I could here specify one or more project that I want to use. Makes no sense yet, so I remove it again, but here you can test even the multi-project calls. I can include the corpus scoring we have been talking about also. I can include shadow concepts that are calculated and from what corpus to use. Also here we can use more than one corpus, I guess, Robert?
Yes.
And now let's do the extraction, and you will find that we get not only the normal concepts, we get also that shadow concepts back and the free terms back. And let's go back to the call. Now I remove corpus scoring, and we find that the term results are quite different. So coming back, major improvements in the API will allow a lot of possibilities in integrations in power tagging systems, in any other application where it's used, more intelligence, using PoolParty entity extraction in applications. Of course, this custom scheme information retrieval has also been added to the suggest service that can be used for this autocomplete or search for suggestion of search terms, and in our expand service that allows to expand search queries by information from the taxonomies. That have been the major things that have been done on the entity extractor API. And finally, PoolParty graph search API, again, we showed it in the front end. You can configure those nice charts based on the search data, but of course it's based on an API. So this is the new API that has been introduced into graph search. You can via that API create the calls to get the response format to build up those charts. We're working with Robert. HighCharts. So the HighCharts license is also included in the semantic integrator license if you have graph search. And of course, we have shown it before, major changes to the application itself by introducing the graph store as another store, and that applied, of course, changes to basically all services in the search application. Yeah, with that we are in time at the end of our presentation. I hope it was interesting and you got a good overview over the new features we have in PoolParty 6. Release notes will be published latest tomorrow. The slides will be published too, so you can review what we have shown. And with that, thank you for taking part in the presentation, and we will wait 2 to 3 minutes and then open the microphone for questions.
Okay, thank you.